Thank you very much for coming and joining me. This is going to be an interesting talk about communication, hopefully. I certainly would love your feedback. And again, that's all about communication too. So I'm going to communicate who I actually am. This is me. This is pretty much what's on my Twitter. If you want to follow me, that'll be great, because it's always good for my numbers. This is a 0 in my Twitter thing, just to make it even harder for you to type into it. These are all the kind of communities and events I get involved in as well. So again, all the things I do, communication is really kind of an essential part of what I'm doing. Without communication, then I wouldn't be able to do the things I'm doing. So feel free to tweet me. I think I mentioned that already. And this is kind of, when I was doing this, I kind of realized that this is actually really about a 5-day workshop. And I've got now less than 20 minutes to do this, so I better get on and actually do it. So it's quite distilled, it's quite high level, and hopefully you'll get something interesting. But for me, this is the start of the conversation, the start of communicating with you about these ideas. So feel free to reach out to me, say perhaps via Twitter. Is Andy Piper in the house? Maybe? I don't know. But yeah, so feel free to talk to me after the talk. I'm around for a little while, and I'd love to find out your feedback too. So communication has many forms. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry, I forgot to actually vibrate the air in front of me, which is how we actually do most of our communication. We're actually simply just like vibrating the air that's going in front of me. It's going into this microphone, it's going into the speakers, it's going into your eardrums. You can then hear me. But hearing is not necessarily communication. Actually understanding what I'm saying, me making actually some sense in what I'm saying. Hopefully Bevis will let me know at the end whether I've actually said anything that makes any sense whatsoever. So we've got lots of channels with lots of ways to actually talk about how we communicate. I really like the visual channel. I like to see images of things, to see images of concepts, of ideas. That really makes a lot of sense to me. Just listening to somebody read out some source code would be the most boring and uninteresting and uninspiring thing that I would ever do. But actually reading a good blog is really interesting, but if it's got pictures in, it makes it even better. So yeah, there's lots of different forms, and I think the most underused and underappreciated forms of communication are things like touch and smell and taste. These really kind of help build on our emotional sense of our brain and really kind of drive home that kind of feeling of experience that you get. So if you're in a good event, you've enjoyed the talks, and then you go and have some great food, it kind of builds on that as well. And it makes you even more kind of attached to the experience that you've actually had. So having a good meal and something other than pizza is usually a good way to communicate that you actually care about the experience of the event you're running or whatever you're doing. So again, this is an important kind of aspect of communication you should consider when you're doing things. So with all these kind of methods of communication, we've got speaking, we've got the written word, which is very powerful, we've got visuals, we've got touch, all our senses. It should be really, really easy to communicate with each other. Nobody has any problems whatsoever. Yes? Then we can go. Oh, well, that's not quite the right thing, because communication is kind of improbable. And why is that the case? Well, because our brain just likes to forget things. It likes to ignore things. It likes to just filter out millions of things, which it has to do, because there's so much input we get from all our senses all the time. We have to filter out things, because our brain just can't process that amount of work. It's like if we were trying to stream 500 YouTube videos to our phone would explode and it would blow up like all the Samsung phones do. All the latest ones anyway. Yeah, so our brain has to make decisions for us about what it wants to actually listen to. So we have to kind of cut through all our filters and make sure that when we're giving a message out, that we kind of can work within those filters that people are going to apply to all our messages. And there's lots of talk about fast and slow thinking. So your brain has 2 levels. It's kind of got this level 1, system 1, where you're instantly reacting to something. If I say, who wants chocolate? Some people will think, yes, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate. And I say, well, do you want chocolate? Do you want like a big block of chocolate and you want to gorge on it and then feel really big and unhealthy afterwards? And then, okay, your slower brain will start to kick in and think, well, okay, maybe I shouldn't have chocolate. I've already had chocolate every day, or I've already had pizza every day because I've been to so many events that perhaps I won't have pizza today. But your emotional kind of response will say, yeah, I want. So you kind of can play to these different levels of thinking when you're doing communication. And there's a really good book, which just happens to be the little speaker gift that we get. So I might actually get to read all of this instead of just reading the excerpts on Wikipedia. So that'll be really good. So I definitely recommend kind of delving into this to kind of understand the brain, because we've talked about things like segmentation in the developer workshop we did yesterday. It's like understanding the audience. But inside all our audiences, there's individual people with individual brains. And there is this thought process that we need to kind of appreciate and understand, because that's what's going to process all our communication. And if we don't kind of have an understanding of that, it's going to make it harder to actually understand why people aren't listening to our message. And then there's confirmation bias, one of my favorite subjects. It's so easy to kind of think, oh yes, everything we do is fantastic. My company's got the best developer relations thing in the world. We do this, everything is wonderful, and everybody just loves us. That's not the case. Nobody loves everybody. And so we have to fight our own biases, not just the biases of the people we want to communicate with as well. And there's an awful lot of biases as well. I don't know them all, but they are, again, on Wikipedia, and I will be studying them a bit more over Christmas. We're all opinionated people. We all have opinions, we all have ideas. We wouldn't be in developer relations if we didn't have opinions about things. We like to share them, and there's nothing wrong with that. As long as we appreciate that these are our opinions, they're not necessarily facts. We need to kind of understand how much we actually understand about something when we're actually sharing that information. So if I say X is great, everybody should use Emacs, then I have to have an opinion. I have to have a reason about why I have that opinion, to really kind of get people to say, okay, well, not everybody's going to use Emacs overnight just because I say it's wonderful, although I think they should. But I need to kind of back that up with real kind of tangible and valuable things for the people I'm communicating with. And also, oh, there we go, animation. If you've got an opinion and a very closed mind, that's something that's very hard to reach out to as a person. If you're trying to get that message to somebody else and they've got a very closed mind, they don't want to hear that message, that's very hard for you to communicate with. But also, even worse is if you've also got quite a closed mind about something, and it's kind of easy to like accidentally fall into having a closed mind about something. If something becomes very precious to you, very important, you're very prideful in something you've done, it's very easy to be overprotective in the thing that you've created, and therefore you're going to be less able to communicate effectively about that thing as well. So you have to kind of take it on the chin and be open-minded. As Lorna was talking about like getting her blogs reviewed, then it's a hard thing for somebody else to look at it, but it's better if like a few people give you some constructive feedback than 1,000 people give you some horrible feedback on Hacker News. And so, yeah, I guess the summary is to avoid living in your own bubble. It does look quite fun, living in your own bubble, but it does isolate you from the people you're trying to communicate to. So unless people already want to join this bubble, you're not going to be able to reach out to them. So it is important to kind of know where your own biases are, where your own strong opinions are, and not be afraid to kind of change them and be a little bit flexible on that. Because we don't really want to get out the troll spray, because that's bad enough kind of dealing with people who do troll your community, but if you're doing that as well, then you're just going to send everybody away from that community as well. So can we communicate? Can we actually share the meaning that we're doing? If we've got all these biases going along, then how do we actually get through all those? Well, one way we don't do that is by trying to do too much. The more you actually do when you're in your developer relations programs, the more you're trying to do in whatever you're doing, the less likely you'll be able to communicate effectively. Your brain will be going like this, it'll be going, wah, I don't know what's going on, and I can tell by the audience that I could probably just leave this up here and walk out the room, and nobody would actually notice for 5 minutes. But this is my brain, definitely. And I need to go away and switch this off to get all this craziness going off. But it is kind of like a matter of standing back and actually thinking, well, what are we doing? What's the value? Why should we do these things? So these are the things I'm going to go through now. So as Lorna was saying earlier on, like writing really clear content is really, really valuable, really, really important. But also, if you're going to do something like an event, people need to know why they should go. You need to communicate not just, yes, we're having a great event, it's going to be fantastic, we're hopefully going to have hundreds of signups, but why are people going? What will they benefit from it? Not what will you benefit from it, but what will they actually benefit from it? And that's kind of the thing you need to put front and center. If people don't know why they want to go, they won't go. It doesn't matter if you actually put the date on when it's supposed to be there, date and time, location. If people don't know, have a reason for going, then it's going to be a very quiet event that you're going to run. And also visualizing your message as well, putting lots of cool graphics in. When I was started with Heroku and Salesforce, nobody knew like Heroku, but then when I tried to teach them, I realized nobody knew Git. And so I spent the like first 6 months of my job to actually teach people how to use Git. And one way to do that was actually draw it, because actually doing things on the command line, I found out, wasn't that useful for a lot of people. So actually visualizing what I was trying to communicate about a technology actually helped them understand what was happening, understand what the pieces were, how the pieces fit together, and by the end, I kind of taught over 100 people how to use Git effectively enough. And then when it came to using Heroku, it was simple. I mean, we just use Git. Okay, yeah, we can use that. It's fine. So I already got the message through and helped them understand what it was I was trying to communicate by understanding what their need was and understanding the best way to present a solution to that need. And in all this kind of complexity, all the things you're doing, trying to keep something as simple as possible is probably the most valuable thing you can actually remember. If you make things confusing, if you make things hard to understand, people won't engage with them. I work for a company where we've got a really big platform. We keep adding lots of new features to all the time. I work for Star Wars, in case you haven't noticed. It's not as if we can teach people that in 5 minutes. So we found ways to make that as simple as possible so they can take that first step. They can engage with us. How do you have your first experience of working with us? Your first experience of the community, your first experience of the event. If you're running events, like making people welcome, like doing the simple things by having somebody there to say, hello, welcome to our community. We're happy to have you here. We want you to get involved. Is there anything particularly you're interested in? And those kind of things help people engage with what you're trying to do, engage with the message you're trying to send. So keeping it simple, but no simpler, is very kind of wise words that affect everything we're doing in communication. And organizing yourself as well. So actually, this is one of the things we continually look at. In fact, we had somebody who came in for an interview recently and showed us how we could improve some of our organization and improve the way that that people can discover the things that we're doing. We do some really good stuff in our DevRel programs. Joe's just seen a picture of himself. Look at his Joe. There we go.
Right, I don't look like that.
Yeah, he'll look a bit scruffier now. And it kind of it helps people to kind of understand what you're about if they can find everything in one place. And I think it was Caroline this morning was talking about having like a portal system where everybody can come to it as one central place. There's no kind of no surprise that a lot of companies have developer.companyname.com or whatever, because it's a central place that people can go and find out what's actually going on. If you have lots of different sites all over the place, all called various different names, then it's much harder to find. And so with MLH, it's quite good because they give them a little bit of freedom to kind of, they suggest what they can call their hacks, but they put them all in a central place. So if you want to know what's going on in Europe in terms of hacking, you can go to one place, you can find out exactly what they're doing. It's just a really easy way that MLH communicate all the kind of different diverse activities that are going on in their organization and in their community. So that's really cool, and we need to kind of do that a bit more ourselves. How much time have we got? 5 minutes. Oh my God, I've got loads of slides left. This is going to be really quick. So listening, obviously, hopefully you've enjoyed listening to me today. But listening is not thinking. Actually, trying to actively listen is a really valuable technique, but it takes a lot of practice as well. Actually, listening to somebody is a skill that you need to build up. And things like mindfulness can actually help you listen. And it's not just listening face-to-face, it's listening to what people are saying on forums, what the people are saying on Twitter, even if you don't like what they're saying. Actually listening to the intent, even if they're being quite rude or even worse, actually understanding the intent that they're trying to get across, even if they're doing that badly, is highly valuable. And asking yourselves why you're doing something. You might have lots of ideas about what you want to do, but why are you doing it? Why is it going to be valuable to your community? Why is it going to be valuable to your company? Challenge your assumptions. Should we do it right now? Should we do it, is it valuable now? We've got a new product, but it's a bit chonky, it's not quite ready. Perhaps we should actually just wait and it'd be more valuable, because if people engage now and they don't like it and we get a lot of negative feedback, it's going to be a lot harder to actually re-engage them in a few months' time. Perhaps we can just actually wait and then communicate all this stuff later. We build better docs, we build slightly better, more mature product, and then we'll get a better engagement, we'll get a better communication with that community. And there's techniques like 6 thinking hats as well, which really helps you think about all the different aspects of what you're trying to do. And also being clear. Do you want to leave this talk right now or not? If you can work out what that says, you can leave. Nobody has. There we go. So it's quite, and people do this in music as well. Like, I can't get no satisfaction. Double negatives. You have to think about what it is they're actually saying. And if you have to think about somebody's communication too much, you're probably going to move on and go and look at something else instead. So you have to keep everything nice and clear and concise. Otherwise, you get very difficult people, and then you have to spend more time kind of dealing with those people and actually understand their concerns. So what can we learn from communication? Or we can learn how we do communication, and so having a retrospective is not just for agile projects, but for DevRel teams as well. What do we do well? What should we do more of? What should we do less of? These kind of things. It's always good to kind of test and validate everything that you're doing, and that includes the way you communicate. And so you get survey results. We have some really interesting surveys, but does it actually apply to us? It's really interesting information, but does that information actually apply to us? How can we actually make use of it? We still need to make sense, turn that data into real intelligence, real information for the things that we want to achieve and the things that our community wants to achieve as well. So you can't just take a survey and say, well, we should do that. You have to test that assumptions very clearly as well. And ask people. So you get 100 people have said, oh yes, we love doing X, but do they? And are they in your community? And are they the ones that are active in your community as well? So there's a lot of assumptions from that feedback you can make, but you still need to test these things as well. I think that. And keeping it real, it's not just about t-shirts. I did used to work for a t-shirt company that was also a software company, a really good software company. We also do hype-driven development. There's a lot of hype out there we have to cut our way through. So again, don't fall into the trap of being a hype-driven development dev relations team. And if you have to actually, the way you can tell is if you have to actually force people to use your technology, it's probably not right, or it's probably not ready yet. So it's a good test to do that. Can I have 5 volunteers on stage, please? Really quickly. Go on. 5. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. So every time, yeah, cool. Boom, 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 boom. Boom. Self time. There we go. See if we can all get in. There we go. There we go. Cool. I should have said you're all going to get a prize for this. There we go. Thank you very much. Cool. The prize itself is actually the selfie. Yeah, so you can quite comfortably say that I went to DevRelCon and all I got was this lousy selfie. So again, the problem is with that, I kind of offered a prize, but I didn't really deliver on that prize. And everybody can actually share in the prize as well, so it's not really that great. So yeah, be careful what you're actually promising. You do need to deliver on your communication, whichever form of communication you choose. You need to be giving real value to the community as well. And what is communication? What is it not? It's not Slack. You can use Slack to communicate, but it's not actually communication in itself. It's a tool. The way you use it, the way you talk things, what the messages you share on Slack, that's the real communication, not the actual tools themselves. The tools just help you communicate. So don't forget that. In summary, build up trust. Building good communication builds up trust. And communication is probably the most important part of developer relations, but actually making it effective is even more important. And that's me, because otherwise if we don't do effective communication, we are just vibrating the air between us. Thank you very much.